For me, I realized that I wasn't going to be a good caretaker if I was struggling so much. So, creating a life where I can feel balanced or just a little bit more whole, then I can show up in the harder moments with my children without, screaming or behaving in a way that I don't want to behave.
All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the AlignUs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and I'm so grateful to have you all here with us today. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about mom burnout. And joining me, as always, is my co-host and growth and mindset expert, Kevin Drummond. What's going on, man?
Everyone, happy to be here. Excited to start this conversation and talk about moms. Like none of us would be here without them. So yeah, I'm excited.
100%, man, 100%. And our special guest today is Dr. Priyanka Naik, who is joining us from New York and is a physician, but now a professional coach for professional moms who are suffering through burnout. Thank you for joining us today, Priyanka. So grateful to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm really excited to talk about this hot topic and something that really affects moms and professionals, actually men too, and physicians as well. So it's a big topic.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like, this is a topic that certainly resonates with me, and I was talking to Kevin earlier and I was just saying like, I've known Priyanka for quite a while since she was in medical school and I was in residency. And I find it really hard. I never imagined that this day would happen where we are in different careers, focusing on people's mindsets and helping them thrive. At least 12 years ago, I could never imagine this day, but it's awesome, and it's truly incredible to see this. So tell us a little bit about your background. What got you to where you're at now and dealing with, moms and professional moms who have gone through burnout?
Yeah. So, originally I went into medicine wanting to heal people, help people. And I was finding in residency, it wasn't really turning out exactly like that. And I started knowing that I wanted to do something else. I just didn't know yet. And that all happened by reading Jen Sincero's book called You Are a Badass. I don't know if you read it, but that pretty much gave me, she's a life coach, and that gave me the possibility that anything's possible. So it started with that. I toyed around with some business ideas, but then when I became a mother, yes, Kevin's just showing us his book by Jen Sincero.
Big fan.
So when I became a mom, things just drastically changed for me. It really forced me to reevaluate how I was living my life, how I was showing up, and what ambiance I was creating for him. And really, I had always been really anxious, really stressed. And in a way, I thrived on that. And I would pride myself on just being really go, 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 do, do, do. And after I had him, like I must have been like 6 months, like sleep deprivation. And I started having such bad anxiety that when I was back at work, I thought, pretty soon, like I'm not going to be able to work anymore because I'm just totally like, I'm obsessing all the time about all his stuff. And it was getting out of hand. So I knew I had to do something, which led me to a very deep meditation journey, working out and all this stuff. And that kind of set me on a path of, all right, well, I'm going to have intentionality, and I see that I can make things way better with just a little bit of work. If I take the work that I put into being a physician into my just personal life, see what can happen. Because a lot of times we just let that part drop, right?
Yes, 100%.
So then as I saw myself healing and really becoming so much more relaxed than I was before, I realized like, whoa, this is something that like, I wish I had had this when I became a mom. Like other moms need to learn some of these really simple things to do that will just change your whole life. And you don't have to be struggling. You don't have to be miserable. Just kind of getting through the day, what I call the daily grind dread trap. It's like one day bleeds in the next and you just want it to be over. And that's who wants to live like that when you work so hard?
No, I agree. Like you said so many beautiful things there. And I think one of the things that certainly, resonated was that you actually began, you started feeling anxiousness, and you started noticing these symptoms and how they were showing up every day in your life, and how you felt miserable. Like you just wanted to get the day over with. And, that's not the way to live. You're right. And then you did something beautiful. You started turning that attention that you're giving all your patients, your kids, your mom, your dad, your husband, whoever, your family members, all that attention and energy that we give out to the world. You started putting that energy back onto you. And you did it like slowly and with intentionality, which is beautiful, and then slowly it's like you're filling your cup back up, and you're noticing yourself like having more vitality, and you get this like epiphany, like, yo, other people will benefit from this so much, what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's so cool. Like, it's like you start loving on yourself, and it's like, boom, these ideas start flowing into your
Yes.
mind, and you want to get that out there. I love it.
Absolutely. So that was really my motivation. And I really started with coaching mainly physicians who really end up in burnout, wanting to quit their job. And the main issue that they have is they're trying to solve by changing the circumstances. Well, I'm just gonna quit this job and get a new one, or this place is malignant, or I'm gonna do this. And the work, like you're talking about, really starts from within. Yes, you can change your circumstances, you can change your job, but if you can't work on yourself and how you're experiencing your life, then it's not going to do you any good.
Yeah.
And that's where the work comes in.
Yes,
Yeah,
I agree.
very well said. Like it all comes down to introspection. And you alluded to this too, Nick. You had the ability to reflect. Like you were like, okay, I'm feeling this anxiety. This isn't like me. I need to figure out what's going on. Just listening to your body, that is a skill that I think a lot of people tend to ignore because of the demands that they feel from their environment or the relationships that they're in, to where they're drowning out all of that. And so you being able to do that, just sharing that with moms, like, hey, you have a lot of responsibilities. You're being asked to do this at work. You're being asked to do this by your significant other. You also have the kids asking you to do this. Don't let your inner voice get, just annihilated because you feel indebted and guilty to do these other things. So I think that alone is a gem. Like, listen to your intuition. So that's just beautiful.
And the thing is that we are, especially being a professional, but more so even these days, anyone, we're constantly being distracted from our own intuition, whether that's with our cell phones, whether that's with TV, whether that's we are unhealed and we're still reliving past traumas, guilt, shame. Our mind isn't grounded. And then we have external energies always vying for our attention and our energy at the same time. And so our nervous system gets, I feel, hyper reflexive, and we're always kind of in this fight or flight mode, and we don't have time to sit down for a moment with clear thought to be like, all right, what do I really need to work on right now? Like, how do I get to the source of this? Like what you were alluding to, Priyanka, how we can change jobs. We're always trying to fix things, and that fixing mentality often leads us down a spiraling path, and, with a crash and burn. And so I think it's really important, the gem that you mentioned about turning that within you and then building that foundation so you're able to turn up the noise that's coming within, and it's usually guiding you to the direction that you need to go in, and it's about making that time to do that.
Yeah. And how did you do that too? Like having that faith, like to say, you know what, I'm gonna put myself first. Like I know that's a huge problem that people deal with, like the guilt. So like what happened for you? Like how did you deal with that feeling?
I think especially when you first become a mother, you feel like you're supposed to be with your child all the time. You feel guilty if you leave. You want to micromanage all the whatever, the feedings, it's a big shock to the system. And I think type A women, people, they just tend to want to control in order to fix the anxiety, which is not like a proper solution. And I guess for me, I realized that I wasn't going to be a good caretaker if I was struggling so much. So creating a life where I can feel balanced, or, just a little bit more whole, then I can show up in the harder moments with my children without, screaming or behaving in a way that I don't want to behave. Not to say that I never do that, nobody's perfect,
Yeah.
but I do find that when I'm caring for myself and I do take the time, I have so much more patience than if I'm sleep deprived, like all work, no play, whatever else, or just not doing things for myself. Or even I think career moms feel really torn that they need to be like staying at home. I think children put a lot, my son is always asks me like, why do you have to go to work and why are you working? And I've explained that it's a choice that I make and that's something I want to do for myself. And I think that's good for him to hear because someday maybe his partner will want to work, whatever it is, or he's going to work. And it's all right. Like we get to have a life too. And that's what makes us more enriched to be present and balanced, but also good role models for them.
And just think about how you guys were as kids. I'm not sure what your parents' work situation was, but I know that both of my parents worked. And it was especially inspiring to see my mom work and seeing her work ethic. She worked at a bank in Washington, D.C. She would take the bus to get to the train station. Then she would take the train 45 minutes to get to D.C. and work. And then she would work till like 6 p.m. And then it'd be cold at night and she would take the train back. And it was when she got home, she would be always cooking like fresh meals, for us and the family. And to think about how effortless she made that, it's truly, I've had more, respect for that as I've gotten older. And it truly took a lot of patience, a lot of care, a lot of dedication. But it's very inspiring to see your mom working, and it sets a good example for how I need to be, growing up, and then how I'd like my partner to be as well, because there's something beautiful about, each parent, creating something that they enjoy doing.
Man,
Yes,
and
I agree.
sorry, what I was gonna say, Nick, and I completely agree, that work ethic, that example that she set, I can only imagine. I was literally visualizing it. I was just in DC last week, and the transits can get crazy and the delays as well. And I was just thinking, like, wow, like one parent doing whatever it takes as far as like the transit, and then you have, you, Priyanka, like I don't even know how to put into words because I never, and nothing to say anything bad about like my mom, but that ability to take a risk, like having a safety net by going left and then knowing, the right, it may not work, it may be hard, but I'd be so much fulfilled. Like that's powerful. So setting that example for your kids too, imagine like no matter what obstacles come in front of them, be like, Psh, I saw the risk my mom took. Why would I do anything otherwise? Right? Like
That's right.
that shift. I mean, it's just it's beautiful. I'm lucky to be here. I'm lucky to hear this, and I just want to hear more, like, how you did it, because faith is hard, especially when you don't have the support. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I was gonna say, so like, do you see a lot of people like yourself that come in to, want to get coached? Like, how are some of these professional moms showing up? Like, what's their background? What are their complaints? How is burnout showing up in their life? And then,
Yeah.
can you just walk us through your typical like conversation with them, and then some strategies that you work with them on?
Absolutely. So yeah, so I've worked with physicians, lawyers, pharma executives, and the main thing that really causes the burnout is all these, like most of the duties at home and then working full time and all of that put together, and they're just totally depleted, and their experience, how it's showing up is every day just bleeding into the next and finding themselves, they're really hard on themselves, they're perfectionists, so they'll beat themselves up about just stuff at work, like what did this patient think, or my boss thinks this of me, or I'm not going to get that promotion. And then at home, geez, I'm not handling this right with my kid, or I'm not spending enough time. Oh, I kind of want to go to the gym, but I don't know, like I already only spend like a couple of hours with them in the evening, my kids. So what? So, and so on and so forth. And it's like a stream of consciousness of, more or less, it really boils down to not good enoughness in the workplace and at home. And then that leaves them feeling tired and frustrated and really anxious and unhappy.
Right. And then, so yeah, there's like a spiral of things that I can see happening, and that like loss of feeling like you're not good enough. And then how do they deal with like how can they best, if like I guess, empower themselves or really stick up for themselves to want to make that change? Because again, if you're in a relationship and then you have kids, to want to start setting boundaries, I would think, like with your husband, like how should they approach these conversations? Because again, a lot of people have come into these relationships, and sometimes the expectations aren't communicated, I would say, between the husband and wife about how, like we should be raising our kids, how are the duties going to be, divided up. How are those, like, how do you suggest the women that are in these situations start that communication?
So it's funny that you asked that, because the first thing that comes to my mind is we work on self-love and self-empowerment. And when you start to really love yourself, then you find your voice, because a lot of these women I have found, though they're really powerful in their jobs, they'll say, oh, I'm really afraid to speak up, and like I'm not heard and nobody hears me. So the more you can kind of start to feel that stabilization in yourself, which is learning to love yourself, then you feel worthy to actually even express. So once you do that part, then you can be clear about what the expectations are, what duties, you might want to split up, etc. Can we outsource, especially with two working parents?
Mhm.
That I think is huge. It's very difficult to manage 100% of it if you're working, or even cutting back at work. Is that possible? Or whatever works. But really having the confidence to do that and building that.
Yeah, I think because I feel like, the ideal, relationship situation is when there's two independent individuals who are pursuing their dreams, their ambitions, because that energy, leads to even more creation. It leads to this abundant, beautiful, magnetizing energy. And then when you come together with another individual who's on that same wavelength and same vibration, it's like you create this like power couple. But there needs to be like this communication that, hey, my needs are not being met, or there needs to be a balance that is created, and that happens with open dialogue. And if you're already in this relationship and you're feeling like you're going through burnout, you remember, like, you changing is going to cause some triggering. It is going to cause your partner to being like, yo, I thought you were supposed to pick up the kids, from baseball practice, or why isn't the dinner ready at home, right? These expectations that have, either subconsciously or consciously been, made and set upon females, those expectations, are going to need to be, changed, right? And that starts by changing yourself within and doing some of these mindful, some of these strategies to start looking in yourself. So I think, it's important for people to understand that don't like lock yourself in to think that, hey, if I try to change or do something, that's going to affect the kids, then it's going to affect the husband. We worry too much about how it's going to affect everybody else, except worrying about how this is affecting how I'm living currently.
Correct. And I think also just being able to ask for help. I have found in the last couple of years, I shamelessly ask for help now, but before I would always hesitate and be like, well, is this one busy? And I don't want to be too needy. And I don't want, like, no, if you need help, you need help. And I have found that if you actually ask, people will step up to the plate very happily, just like you would if somebody asked you for help. So even just being able to do that freely, I think really helps moms create their own tribe and community to step up to the plate with various, when something might happen where a babysitter's sick or whatever it is.
Yeah, having a close-knit community around you of like-minded individuals who aren't judging you, and who are unconditionally loving you and supporting you is definitely significant. I was gonna ask, because you told us about that feeling of anxiety that you noticed,
Mhm.
in your journey. What are some other, I guess, like warning signs of like, mom burnout that maybe aren't known, or, that might be disguised or may have been normalized because you've gotten used to it for so long now that you don't even, notice it from anything else?
Yes, that's a great question. Like a feeling of dread to face the day, or dreading going to your job. Another thing is, which I find is checking out of your job in a way, like being on your phone all the time. I remember there was a time when I would be walking from room to room, and in between the room, I'd be on my phone, like just like checking out for those like few seconds, walking from one patient room to the next. Like it was really,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no need to do that. Doing that, really losing, like not making any time and losing time for any fun activities or connection with your friends, family, sleeplessness, or even oversleeping, or even it can manifest, of course, in like physical illness as well. That could be like people with anxiety, sometimes they suffer with constipation or diarrhea, or you're actually physically sick, or you're run down and you think, what's wrong with me? Why am I sick? And so on and so forth. And I will even kind of say that the universe, I really believe, will kind of make you sick if you need a break. Like if you're working like a maniac,
Yeah.
you're going to get sick and you're going to have to call out of work for 10 days. Like that happened to me one time when I think I had COVID before they were testing for it. But yeah, I had to, I couldn't even go to work because I had a fever for 10 days.
That's a
Yeah,
good point with
it's
the
crazy. No,
because
it's true. Stress shows up in so many different ways, and again, we think that the headaches that we're having are not related to stress or the neck stiffness or the GI upsetness. But, understand that our stress levels will show up physically. That can lead to really, really bad outcomes. The other question I had was, I know there's a lot of professional moms that are dealing with burnout, but then there's a whole subset of population that are just moms who are stay-at-homes, and these stay-at-home moms have these expectations that, oh, because you're staying at home, right, and you're taking care of the kids, you shouldn't really be complaining about anything,
Yes.
right? Yeah, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, so on my maternity leave, I got a sneak peek of stay-at-home mom life, and I knew right away that that was not for me. But what I also realized was how much
hard.
work it is.
Yeah.
And it's harder than going to work and seeing patients. It's much harder to stay at home and care for your child, frankly. I really believe that. And I realized, I said, oh my God, this is a thankless job. Like these women are caring for their children. They're, let's say, cooking dinner, doing grocery. The whole day goes like cleaning, the day's gone, and expected to be grateful and happy towards their partner for bringing in the money and whatnot. So it's just, it's very tough. And I think those women as well have a lot of pressure on them probably to go to the gym, and they have time, they can exercise, and be doing all these things when really they're overloaded with their own stuff. And I know some stay-at-home moms who maybe felt like they had to and they ditched their career, like they also have feelings of resentment or feel like they're missing out. And so it's a very multi-layered thing, but they are not, what's the word, they're definitely susceptible to burnout, and in fact just as much if not more than working mothers. And also I think those husbands have, or the partners have, an attitude of, oh well, like I'm bringing in all the money, so why would we hire help? Like why do we need
That's
someone to
right.
come in?
100%. And it's, and just think about it. Like you said something really important there is that some of these mothers who are staying at home, they have left behind their careers. And that's like a sense of purpose, right?
Mhm.
Like a calling. Now,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong. There's certainly a purpose and a calling to be able to raise kids, because I truly believe like the creation of a human is one of the greatest callings you can possibly have. Because as
Mhm.
humans, we like, one of our purposes are to create, whether that's kids, whether that's, in our professional careers. But then there's comes a point in life when those kids start growing up, and then those moms who have now left their careers for 13 years, and now their kids are out the door having their own independent life, start feeling lost. They start feeling resentment, like, what do I do now? And then that leads to, it's anger, frustration, and, a lot of spiraling, I would say. And I've noticed that. And I also noticed that during COVID, where a lot of people had to live at home and then they had to be home with their kids, this is where I noticed a lot of the moms telling me they started really burning out because, again, when you're at home with kids, they have a different energy level than most people do. They're like constantly running around and, draining your own energy. And the way that a lot of these moms, cope with that, I know a lot of them were like drinking more, that like these are some things that you would notice yourself doing if you're burnt out, is that you're using different coping mechanisms that are not healthy for you. And, alcohol being one of them, but as a sign of like stress relief. So yes, working at home or being at home, sorry, and staying at home and taking care of your kids and running the whole household is one of the most thankless jobs that you can imagine. And, the burnout rate is likely very, very high there.
That's
Yeah.
right. And what you're talking about is buffering, when people buffer with unhealthy habits, buffering the emotion, whatever it is, the sadness or the anything, anger, with alcohol or drugs or over any
Shopping.
overindulgent. Yeah, whatever, over
Yeah,
anything, gambling, whatever.
right.
And it's so interesting that you say that. There's also additional pressure on moms to, like, when the kids are born, you're not allowed to do screen time for the first 2 years. So you can't put them in front of movies. So you have to entertain them all the time. Then they get used to being entertained all the time. So then it's hard to get a break. And then we're also pressured to rear them in a certain way. And I think social media and even like the American Association of Pediatrics, all these different things and factors put all these expectations on us, which makes it even harder. And I think creates more burnout at home as well with the kids. Whereas I grew up in front of the TV, all the time, like that. I was constantly watching TV in my childhood. So, and I turned out fine, but I'm saying my parents weren't constantly entertaining me.
Different form of
I
media
know.
these days, though. Different
I
form
don't
of
I don't
media.
blame I don't blame moms and parents for putting those devices in front of the kids, because at the end of the
Right.
day, they need to do, they need their
They need their own
It's the
time.
time.
only way to
Yeah.
keep them safe sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It keeps them
So,
engaged, and allows
They'll
you
just
to
sit there and they're not going to get into trouble if you have to take a shower or whatever. It's the only thing that works.
Yeah, I'm with it, man. I'm with it. You got to utilize the technology and how things are going for the best of its abilities. So I'm
I
not a
Exactly.
completely
proponent for
agree.
that.
I completely agree. I mean, I have two little ones of my own, 7 and 9, and I mean, you can leverage it in different ways. Like I leverage it to let them read more books. Like I wanted to increase like their reading comprehension and competency. I was like, how do I do this? iPads. Okay,
Yeah.
you want to use your iPads? How old are you? You're 7. Okay, you got 7 books each day that you have to read in order to be able to use your iPad. They complained at first, but now, I mean, like clockwork. It's like it's great leverage. But I was gonna say this too with moms, and this is just completely unbiased. Like I definitely understand what you were saying, Nick, in regards to like that expectation of like being at home, folding clothes, taking care of the house, cooking dinner, taking care of their homework. And then on top of that, you want them to take care of their bodies because you want to still have an attractive wife. And then
Right.
you still want them to be in a great mood, arms open, take off your clothes, leave them anywhere. We'll pick it up. And then you still want a massage. And then you still want to have that intimate relationship. Like it's a lot. And it's like, where do you expect this energy to come from? Because if you have 100% battery and you're giving it to the kids, you're giving it to the chores, like where does any battery or energy go back to mom?
There it
So I'm
is.
speaking on it, man. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense.
How do we get their battery life back to full? Like, what are some
So,
strategies that you think you would give moms to help recharge themselves and get themselves to where they need to be so they're thriving in their professional life and in their personal life?
Yeah. So really daily habits, and you have to start out really small, make very manageable goals. Cause when people come to me and they're like, I want to work out 1 hour a day for 5 days a week. I haven't worked out in 4 years. I'm like, this is not like, just slow your roll. Like you can get there, but even so, whatever it is for you, I think a routine in the morning, it doesn't even have to be long. It could be 5 minutes, like waking up 5 minutes before your kids wake up, and you could have a couple sips of coffee. You could sit quietly. You could read out of a book for 5 minutes. You could meditate for 3 minutes. It could be anything. My morning routine has probably changed multiple times in the last several years, but it is definitely something I look forward to as my set like reset, or it like almost sets my day off on the right foot. And it just gives me like, okay, this is my time and nobody's like encroaching on this. So that's one thing. I think working out in any way, shape, or form, even for like 5 to 10 minutes, if you don't feel like doing it, just do it like really briefly, take a walk around the block. Anything is helpful just to get your body moving, because we have all this pent up energy and the anxiety and we need to flow it out. And so getting your body moving is one great way to do that. Meditation is great. I think a lot of people have a tough time sitting and meditating, and that's fine. You can use tools, especially when you're getting triggered or you're feeling anxious or stressed, simply dropping into your body. So one easy thing I like to do is I'll say to myself, or I'll tell my clients, there is a body. And you literally just notice your body with your feet on the floor, maybe your butt on the chair, and you feel the weight of gravity, and you just drop into your body so that it gets you out of that, stream of consciousness of your thoughts that can be so draining, or just even that feeling, noticing where it is in your body. And noticing is really the first step in all this work, where you got to notice when you're feeling drained, exhausted, anxious, and then you can actually do something about it. But so many people are just on autopilot that they don't even realize what's happening. So the mind body awareness is a major component and key in, ditching burnout, and really not just helping with the negative feelings and the anxiety and all that, but also being present for the moments that matter. You drop into your body and you get out. Like if you're doing story time with your kids, instead of brainstorming what the grocery list is going to be for tomorrow, because it's still going to be there, you can just like literally drop into your body, say there is a body, and be present with your children, because our time with them is limited. As we know, they're going to leave us, and apparently they ditch you when they're like 10 or 11, I guess. I don't know, but
I mean,
I
I'm
was
saying,
planning for 18, but
wait.
I heard it sooner, so might as well make the most of whatever time I have with them.
That's right, man. Wow, those are some great gems. Really, really well said. And I think it's important for people to understand that when you are doing good things for yourself, you're going to show up better for everyone around you. That includes your kids, your significant other, and your careers. So it shouldn't be the thought process of, oh man, I don't have time for that. It should be, I need to make time for this so that I'm thriving, and then my kids are going to be thriving, and my significant other and our relationship is going to be thriving, and I'm going to be killing it at work.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. And don't forget, one thing that I didn't mention is have fun. You have to have fun no matter what it is, like with your kids, without your kids. Life is too short to just whatever it is for you. Like me, we turn on music, we dance. I feel levity, I feel free, and that's what makes me happy. So I do it. But whatever that is for you, where you're just feeling like, all right, this is my best self, or I'm just enjoying and I'm not taking life too seriously, that has to be incorporated at, like, I would say every day, but if not that, multiple days a week.
Agreed. Be like a child. Great advice. Great advice.
Love it. Man, what a beautiful podcast today. I mean, seriously, incredible, incredible. I just want to thank Dr. Priyanka Naik for being on the show with us today, and for everyone listening out there. For more information on her services, we'll put that down in the comment section below, and just thankful for everyone out there. All right, till next time, peace.